Welcome to another story made by Oracle One. In the heart of an ancient, fog-drenched city stood a crumbling townhouse that had long been forgotten by time and its inhabitants. Its wooden shutters sagged, paint peeled like dying leaves from its weather-beaten facade, and an iron gate bent awkwardly, as if reluctant to allow passage. It was here, among the shadows and whispers of long-gone lives, that Eliza Montgomery discovered a secret that would twist her concept of identity and existence into something unrecognizable. Eliza was a woman in her early 30s, with untamed chestnut hair and eyes so vibrant they seemed to shimmer with life itself. She had arrived in the city seeking refuge and reinvention, escaping the sterile comfort of a small town where she had felt trapped beneath the oppressive gaze of her family. The townhouse was purchased at a courthouse auction, its price absurdly low due to its dilapidated condition and a cloud of whispered curses among local residents. Eliza ignored the rumors. She was drawn less by the property itself and more by an inexplicable pull, as if the house had been waiting for her all along. On her first day moving in, as dust motes danced like spectral dust in the dappled light from the grimy windows, Eliza's gaze caught something peculiar in the parlor's far wall. A painting hung crookedly, its gilded frame cracked and tarnished by age. Layers of grime obscured the image, but the visage beneath was undeniably familiar. As she stepped closer, the dirt gave way, revealing a portrait of a woman who was unmistakably her own reflection, yet older. Much older. And yet, somehow not different. Eliza's breath caught as her fingertips brushed the canvas. The painting was a depiction of herself, but not as she was today. The portrait's subject carried every line, every furrow, every trauma of a lifetime lived not with the vibrancy Eliza felt, but with the weight of decades stacked upon delicate features. Her eyes in the painting were sunken, raw with uncried tears, the hair a silver cascade framing a face sharpened by time. Surprisingly, the eyes still stared out with her fierce intensity, and the lips, though pale and cracked, held that same subtle curl of defiance. The enigma grew more unsettling when Eliza decided to place a small, ornate clock on a side table before the painting. Her movements led her to glance at her own reflection in the mirror found higher up on the wall opposite the canvas. There she was, unchanging, youthful, vibrant, no hint of the withering years marked on the canvas. A silent shiver slithered down her spine. How could this painted version of her grow old, while her physical self remained eternally the same? Was it a cruel artistic fantasy, or some sinister magic? Night eventually claimed the house in its grip, and the oppressive silence was suddenly shredded by the racking creaks and groans of settling wood. Eliza's uneasy eyes returned often to the painting, and the longer she looked, the more it seemed that the painted figure was not merely aged but seemed to suffer. Her hands clenched, her shoulders slumped as though burdened by unseen chains, and her eyes glared not just with defiance but with a profound, weary dread. Unable to sleep, Eliza found herself drawn back to the parlor hour after hour, studying the painting. With every passing moment, the eyes appeared to track her movements, the mouth twisted as though whispering secrets in an unheard language. Over time she began to see changes that no one else could perceive. Scars appeared, tiny, occult sigils etched on the withered face, tears carved from cracks in the paint that seemed damp to the touch. It was as though the painting was more alive than lifeless. Days passed. Eliza's reflections on her own unchanged appearance bled into a drowning obsession. Each morning she would stand before the old cracked mirror, tense, waiting for the invisible years to catch her, for time to claim her as it had the image in the portrait. Yet she remained untouched, undiminished by the cruel march of time that aged the painted woman daily. Now, it was not just curiosity but dread that gripped her heart. One evening, as twilight draped the house in a blue haze, Eliza dreamt vividly. In her dream, she was the woman in the painting. Age destroyed her, tormenting her with its relentless passage. She lived a lifetime inside the frame: marriage, loss, solitude, decay, every terrible, precious moment. She awoke. With a start, breath ragged and palms cold with sweat. On the wall, the painting now bore scars of new agony. The painted woman's mouth opened as if to scream. Her eyes glistened with haunted sorrow. Determined to discover more, Eliza descended into the dusty, cobweb-snared basement the next day, hoping to find old documents. Amongst boxes filled with brittle letters and faded newspapers, she uncovered a leather-bound journal. The cover was embossed with a name she had never heard: Isabel Montgomery, dated almost 100 years ago. The handwriting inside was elegant but frantic. Isabel, the author, recounted her life in the house and her defiance of the societal chains that sought to bind her. Then the entries darkened, telling of a terrible curse, a price she paid to escape death itself. A portrait was painted that would immortalize her physical form but imprison her soul, aging within the canvas while her body would stay unchanged and craving release. The curse was intended as a safeguard from death for an ambitious woman unwilling to yield to the natural order, but it turned into an eternal torment. Each day she aged inside the image, alone and trapped, while on the outside her reflection remained untarnished by time. The curse had fractured her very being. At the bottom of the last entry, a chilling warning was written in shaky ink. If the portrait is disturbed, if its prisoner is freed, the curse will not end but will pass to the liberator, and the soul trapped within may take their place among the living, or drag them into the darkness forevermore. Eliza's heartbeat thundered. The realization crushed her. She was standing at the threshold of the same cursed fate. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a dreadful wind gathered that seemed to carry distant, mournful whispers through the cracked walls of the house. Eliza tried to steel herself, but fear whispered a malevolent melody. She ran up the creaking stairs to confront the painting, now an accursed relic whose existence resonated with her very being. That night, with trembling fingers, Eliza reached for the portrait's jagged frame and slowly removed it from the wall, discovering behind it an old hollow compartment carved into the plaster. Inside lay a small black bottle with a silver stopper and a rolled parchment beside it. The note was a desperate plea from Isabel, urging whoever found it to drink the potion and accept the curse voluntarily, taking on the burden for a period so Isabel's aged soul might find release. Eliza's breath hitched. Could she release the soul? Could she bear the curse to free the woman trapped for so long? Was it worth sacrificing her own future? Suddenly, shadows warred and twisted, the floorboards groaning in protest. The silence shattered with a visceral, guttural sound from behind her. The voice of Isabel trapped in the canvas, begging, crying, laughing with maddening despair. With resolve rooted in an instinct older than fear, Eliza uncorked the bottle. The bitter liquid burned down her throat, and her vision blurred. Time fractured. The world bent and twisted into a liminal space between life and death. Eliza felt years knock against her skin, her bones aching as decades slithered across her body like a ravenous tide. The portrait on the wall flickered, the image of Isabel shimmering, then dissolving into Eliza's face. Yet in her reflection, nothing aged. Her body remained constant, frozen, but her consciousness was dragged through the agonizing labyrinth of years not lived, pain not felt by the living but stored in that eternal prison. When the agony ceased, Eliza found herself back in the parlor. The painting vanished, eradicated by the swap of souls. Yet the weight of countless years remained in her mind, a collage of isolation, bitter regrets, and crushed hopes. The house seemed darker, the air thicker. A cold rage surged within her. She was bound now, not by a frame on the wall but by the weight of eternity. It dawned suddenly that as Isabel's torment ended, Eliza's began. She felt the binding pull of the curse like a chain, invisible but suffocating. The realization froze her blood. She had become the painting. Hours passed, then days. Slowly, Eliza's youthful body began to reveal first faint lines, then deeper creases. Her hair grayed at its roots and silver streaks multiplied. But when she looked in the mirror, to her horror, her image remained unchanged, the same vibrant woman who had first walked into the house, untouched by age. The truth was devastating. The curse did not keep her soul in the painting, but it fractured her existence. Her consciousness was dragged through time outside her physical shell, living 1,000 dying moments in perpetual agony. Her body was now a timeless vessel, unchanging, but the true self was trapped in an endless spiral of withering agony, aging without the body, living without the form. She was immortal, condemned. The portrait no longer hung on the wall, but it lived inside her. Desperately, Eliza searched for a way to break the curse. She descended again to the basement, scouring the remaining journals and annals. It was then she uncovered the final terrifying detail. The curse was cyclical and eternal. The soul's torment could only be halted by passing on the burden to another by craft or chance. An endless relay of suffering. The thought of inflicting this hell onto another tore at her. Could she condemn the innocent as she herself had been condemned? Could she survive the unending epics trapped between time's cruel hands? Night after night, Eliza's dreams bled into waking visions. Shadows moved at the edges of her sight. A presence whispered promises of mercy in grim tones. The house itself seemed to murmur with life, ancient and hungry. A predator woven from the mortal dread of time and death. One evening, in the flickering candlelight of the parlor, Eliza stood before an empty space where the portrait once hung. Her reflection in the mirror showed her unchanged youth, but beneath the surface, she saw flickers, cracks in the veneer where centuries of sorrow welled up, threatening to shatter her. The air thickened, and the room's shadows stretched, coiling like serpents. A cold, brittle voice whispered from nowhere and everywhere, "The only release lies in passing the chain, entrusting the air to the endless waltz." Eliza's resolve hardened. She would not be an eternal prison, nor would she drag another into this nightmare. She would find a way to sever the curse, to destroy the cycle, even if it consumed her. Armed with forbidden knowledge pieced from Isabel's journals, Eliza sought out occult scholars, forgotten rituals, and ancient artifacts hidden in the city's labyrinthine catacombs. Each step drew her deeper into a web of eldritch horror spun by time itself. Her own body, still frozen in eternal youth, became an avatar, a vessel for a curse that was no longer just her own but a distortion in the very fabric of reality. The portrait that aged without her had become the truth of her existence, a soul imprisoning itself beyond mortal decay, forever suspended between time's ruthless currents. In the final, desperate night, surrounded by arcane symbols and the faint stench of burning herbs, Eliza performed a ritual of unbinding. The house trembled, walls groaned, and time itself seemed to wail as cracks opened in reality. In that moment, Eliza felt the fractured souls of Isabel and herself merging, releasing an agonized scream that echoed through the ages. Light burst forth and then darkness engulfed her. When she awoke, the house lay silent and still. The mirror no longer reflected a youthful woman. It showed a fragile, aged face, lined and marked by the passage of years. Her body had finally matched the weight of time. The painting was gone, vanished into the ether of broken curses. Eliza stepped outside the house into the morning sun, every breath a poignant gift. Time embraced her at last, neither prison nor curse but as nature intended. And though the portrait had aged without Eliza for so long, it was now the painting left behind, a memory of a time when life and art locked a soul away forever. For more stories, like and subscribe.